Good afternoon, everyone. Supermarkets, $1 billion share buyback program. Oh, wait, I thought Kroger was closing stores due to inefficiency and profit loss. At least it's not as bad as the food shortages in South Africa. Back here in the U.S., consumer price inflation not been seen since the 1990s at these levels. And if you want to look at the top contributors, that's going to cost you an extra nickel. Union Pacific Railroad stopping all container service eastbound, citing rail car shortages. I wonder if that has anything to do with the container shortages occurring about 3 months ago. Stockpiling of resources, continuity of government in play right now. New studies show that by the time people reach their middle ages, the body often produces less than half of the collagen it did in their youth. Collagen is the main building block in our skin, making up 70 to 80% of it. This is why we get sagging skin and wrinkles as we age. If you want to look younger, you must supplement collagen, which will improve your skin's elasticity, make it smoother, more plump, and more youthful looking. That's why Ageless Multi-Collagen provides 5 key types of collagen you need from 4 different sources, essential to optimally support an array of full-body benefits. No odor, no taste, no clumping, unlike other collagen supplements. And this is why I recommend Health with Adapt 2030. Ageless Multi-Collagen, and look at that, I need another bag already. Quick way for youthful appearance. Use the link in the description box below for 51% off my favorite Ageless Multi-Collagen. And now on with the video. Let's see if we can do a little bit of crystal ball right here. History of asset bubbles over the past 40 years. We're in the trajectory to the moon on the right. Loch Ness Monster popping its head above the water there. Go back to the blue tech, 1990s into the transition of the year 2000. So far, our most controlled century. And if we look back at the Consumer Price Index, year on year, highest since September 1991. And I thought that's really interesting how it's minus food and minus energy. If you were to include food and energy, it sure wouldn't be running at 4.5% increase now, would it? It would be well above double digits. Disguise. Top contributors in a different way to analyze the inflation from the Bureau of Labor Statistics: gasoline, meats, poultry, fish, new vehicles, rent, used cars, and other, which would be medicines, building materials, home goods, etc. Here we are on a massive tear once again. But bringing it out into a little bit longer time frame here, this goes back to the early 1980s on the far left of the chart. Now these are money-losing companies that used to be on the primary market, NASDAQ, Russell, Dow Jones, whatever the market they were on. They were a company with shares. Well, when you fall out of that and you start losing money year on year of your company, you're deemed unprofitable and you have to relist on a secondary market. So this is basically a gauge of profitable companies that have transitioned into unprofitable companies that need to relist in a different listing. What do you see the matchup there again? At the year 2000, 1999, and then way over on the far right side is where we are again. So how many similarities to 1999 to the year 2000 tech bubble of everything currently do we need to get before you start to understand decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, in addition to precious metals, as a possible safe haven from the chaos that's about to ensue our markets? And the image here with all these different tokens and stablecoins is the decentralized finance ecosystem, from the lending to the stable coins, the margin providers, the base layer of Ethereum, which everything else is built upon, and then the nodes. And there's even some asset managers from legacy finance, quote unquote, in the mix. So this is going places, along with cryptocurrency as the replacement for our collapsing fiat. And hopefully you can see how all those charts and this intertwines together. Because the excuses are abounding at the moment. We have Kroger over here, and I'm really focused on the food. So let's look at Kroger. Closing stores across so many states in the U.S., specifically West Coast. But they were citing that the stores were not profitable. They couldn't get enough help. Losing money, theft, shoplifting, no rule of law in some of the states. So they said, we're going to close these locations. In addition, they didn't want to pay the extra $4 for pandemic hero pay. Come to find out, in layman's speak, Kroger expects higher share prices because they're going to buy back their own shares instead of operating those locations. Smoke and mirrors at its very best. And I'm wondering how much of that extra cash and capital allocation is going to go towards Bitcoin to try to also raise that final balance sheet coming at the end of November. But one thing that is in earnest rising are food prices across South Africa. Now, doing a little more digging on the images coming out after the last week and a half here, I did not know that processing plants for anything from milk to grains, dairy, and everything else in between has been closed. I knew there were problems going on, roads blocked, etc., but I didn't know that the power plants were shutting down and all the factories had indeed closed, which will put this into the indescribable category. A few days back, scenes like this, as supermarkets were shopped, for a better word, need to be politically correct. But the lines outside the supermarkets, after control was regained in some of these cities, 8-hour food lines just to get in to buy food that's now 3x more expensive. So I guess in the first days, you probably should have done your shopping and got your calories list and the nutrition intake and your storable foods list. But I'm gathering not a lot of people did that. So speaking of deliveries that are being delayed, let's jump over to rail delivery across the United States. Now, Union Pacific has announced that they're going to suspend all eastbound cargo out of the West Coast, heading parts east, specifically Chicago as a hub. Now, they say it's going to last for a full week. I also remember a quote about something with 3 weeks, and here we still are. So I'm wondering with this 1 week here from Union Pacific, how long this will last to stabilize the significant congestion across the rail lines. So they're talking about this intermodal facility or a hub and how it was receiving too much from, I guess, Long Beach in California and Washington State Tacoma Port, and it was overwhelming the facilities. So I'm thinking to myself, there's an enormous amount of people looking for work at the moment. Can people not be trained to do these jobs? I mean, where are all the workers? Where have they gone to? Should be the question. So some of the reasons given directly from Union Pacific are chassis being broken on the rail cars that can't be repaired, labor shortages, which I just referenced, and rail car shortages. Now, I don't understand the rail car shortages unless they're being sent somewhere else. Just like there was a container shortage about 3 months ago, at the same time that ship had blocked the Suez Canal. Somehow, almost 3 million shipping containers just disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm not saying they disappeared. They were reallocated, stocked full of supplies, and then sent somewhere else for long-term continuity of governments as we know it. Same thing with the rail cars. How do rail cars just disappear? Again, if they were stocked full and reallocated into a different position across the United States or Canada, tunnels, whatever it would be, facilities, underground, this would explain it. Now, another thing I want to point out here, the 7-day suspension. So the excuse is given that there'll be no rail traffic running for 7 days to certain destinations. What happens if that's a rediversion of cargo for 7 straight days? How many millions of tons of cargo could you move to another place with no eyes looking at it? I mean, yes, people might see a train blazing down the tracks, but they're not going to know that that's part of the rediversion. Now, would they? unless people pay attention. So they're already telling you for 7 days, cargo's not going to be moving on the tracks, at least to that specific location. It's being rediverted, but where? In 7 days of rail traffic, how many tons? Containers are on top of those rail cars, but I think they're referencing break bulk rail cars. And how many tons of grain could be inside each of those? Because you're going to have to move grains away from the grain silos somehow, and trucks just aren't going to do it. But where is it all being taken to? That's the question. Companies are now very concerned that a supply chain-wide collapse, especially upcoming fall, is in motion. So I'm wondering if the secondary listed companies of unprofitability will grow after this year. But whatever is happening, excuses are already being given why your supplies are not going to make it to the supermarket. You may want to think about storable foods during this time. My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030, either the 2-week or the 4-week emergency food supply, 20-year shelf life, and My Patriot Supply also has 1 month, 6 months, and 1 year food supplies. Check out the website. That link's in the description box below. As we all can sense on the horizon, something just ain't right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.